Mr. David Byrd, we appreciate you being on the call, and thank you so much for taking a few minutes to share this time with us.
Hey, thank you, guys. I appreciate you inviting me to be on the call with you. I never take these types of conference calls lightly. I know you've taken your valuable time to be on the line, and I want to make sure that I give you at least some takeaway for your time and effort. I certainly appreciate the kind words that were just said about me. I'll do my best to live up to those. But guys, I have something very specific that I want to talk with you about. But I'd like to do that. Before I do that, I'd like to give you a little intro. You've just heard that I spent 35 years with Mr. Paul J. Myers, president of his international company, for 12 to 13 of those years. I think it was 13 years. And in that work, I had a unique opportunity because I worked internationally with companies, all types of companies, worked with a lot of small companies, but a lot of those companies were Fortune 500 companies. So I had a very unique opportunity to spend time with top-level CEOs and watch their behavior and work with them in what I call next-level growth. I've spent 35 years of my career and invested that time in learning more about next-level growth. Now, next-level growth is where you're trying to get somewhere where you have never, ever been before. And as easy as that may sound, companies and individuals find a difficult time of that at times, getting to that next level. So I was always looking for those slight edges to help people get to those next levels. Over the years, I learned a lot about organizational dynamics and how the individuals of an organization play into those dynamics. And in 2008, I wrote a book. It was a little book. It's called The Tripping Point in Leadership. And in that book, I talk about a subject that I don't think I've ever seen it broached in organizational management, and that is the issue of apathy. And I called it for what it was. And the little book surprised me. It quickly became a bestseller because the book was all about overcoming organizational apathy. Now, I use a little bit different definition than Webster does when I talk about apathy. Apathy, from my definition, is a natural human instinct common to us all that consistently encourages us to seek a comfort zone in which nothing ever changes. And every time I use that in a large group of people, I ask, how many of you know someone who suffers from that definition of apathy? And almost everyone will raise their hands. And then I ask the hard question. I said, if you were really honest with yourself, how many of you would say, I've suffered from that definition of apathy myself? And if I were in the group, I'd have to raise my hand as well, because we all suffer from that. And the reason for it is because it is perpetuated by our natural human instincts. You think of it this way. Your natural human instincts were given us for a specific reason, self-preservation, to keep us safe. That's why when you get close to fire, you back up. You get close to the edge of a steep decline like a cliff or something, you step back. That's natural. That's a natural instinct. Now, there's nothing wrong with our natural human instincts. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. They keep us safe. Being instinctive keeps us safe. The problem is we use our instincts for the wrong reasons. We begin to live instinctively. And what happens there is our natural human instincts fight the very change that is needed to grow to next level. That's what happens in organizations. And with individuals, that's why habits are hard to change and addictions are hard to break. It's because of our natural human instincts. Our natural human instincts interpret sameness as security. So if you think about that, one of our biggest challenges in life, and especially in business, is overcoming our natural human instinct. And because they're instinctive, you can't really overcome them. You have to do certain things to lift yourself above them, above the natural human instinct. I have found that there are two things that humankind has that the rest of creation does not have. One is the gift of imagination, but the other is the power of choice. We have an opportunity to make choices in our life. And if you think about that, you are today the sum total of the choices that you have made in your past. If you take all the choices you've made in your lifetime, add them all up, that results and equals you. That's where you are today. I used to tell CEOs in corporate America that your organization is perfectly structured to obtain the results that you're getting. So if you think about that, it all boils down to the choices that we make. Now, if you want to enhance where you are, if you want to grow to another level, you obviously have to enhance the choices that you make on a consistent basis. And that was what the premise of the book, The Tripping Point in Leadership, was all about. But in that book, I talk about three choices, and that brings me to what I want to talk with you about today. There are three choices that will determine the degree of your future success. One of them is the choice of attitude. Now, so many people think attitude is a result of the circumstances that you're in. In other words, if there are good circumstances, you have a good, positive attitude. If there are bad circumstances, the circumstances create a bad attitude. Well, I've found over the years, and it's substantiated by psychologists who tell us, that our attitudes are choices. They're really not a result of what's happening to you. They're a result of your mental mindset toward what's happening to you. And we have 100% control over the choices that we make in our life. And so when you look at that, the choice of attitude is almost everything, because we can choose every day to have a proactive or positive attitude, or we can choose to have a reactive or negative attitude. We can be driven by our dreams and our goals, or we can be driven by the circumstances of our life. It truly is our choice. Now, the second choice that will determine the degree of your future success is the choice of action. And I say about action that action is a choice, not a smokescreen. So many times, especially in corporate America and in organizations, we find people who are very, very busy, but they're really not getting anywhere. Choices of action, it's not how much you do, it's the effectiveness of what you do that truly counts. So when you start making choices related to effective actions, you begin to move forward. So we have the choice of our attitudes, we have the choice of our actions that we take. Now there is a third. The third choice we have related to the third choice we have is probably the most important choice that a person could possibly make. I have found it to be one of the strongest forces of human motivation I've ever experienced, and that is the choice of accountability. Now, before you hang up on me, I know the reaction to that word, accountability. But let me explain it, because I think I'm using the word accountability differently than you have ever heard it before. Usually when we think of the word accountability, and the reason we have such a negative response to that word is because we associate it with reporting to the boss, having to do something we don't want to do, someone looking over our shoulder, on and on and on. That's not what I'm talking about. The choice of accountability is truly a choice, and it's a choice that will push you beyond your self-imposed limitations. The type of accountability I'm talking about is when you make the choice to step forward and say, these are my goals, and I choose to be accountable for the accomplishment of my goals. When you do that in a group setting, what I'm saying, the quit factor goes up. In other words, when you make a commitment in front of a group of people related to your goals, now you have employed the strength of everyone else behind you who are struggling with the same things you're struggling with. You have employed the strength of that to move you forward. It pushes you past self-imposed limitations. And we all have those. We have these self-imposed limitations, and sometimes those limitations cause us to want to succeed in private. In other words, I'm not going to tell anybody I'm working real hard, and I don't want anybody to know what I'm doing, but then I'm going to surprise everyone with my success. The problem with that is I've almost never seen that work. I can't say never. I have seen some people surprise me, but it almost never works. But I have seen consistently when people step forward and say, this is my goal, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I did last week, and this is what I'm going to do in the future. When you do that, you employ the peer influence in your life to be responsible for that accountability. I'll give you a quick story. The first book I ever wrote was in 2005. I wrote a book in 2005. That was my first book. I really felt led to write that book, and I wanted to get it published, but I had procrastinated on it for 3 years. And so what I did was I know the power of accountability, the choice of accountability. So I found a group of my peers, 50 of my peers, in one location at one time. And I stood up and I said I had an announcement. And I told everyone in the group, I said, I have decided that I'm going to write a book. And I just wanted all of you guys to know about it. So once I stepped forward and said this was my goal, I hadn't even started the book at that time. Every week someone was calling me, what's the book about? What's the title of the book? When's it going to be published? How many pages will the book have? Every day. From that point forward, there was absolutely no way I could not write the book. That is the power of the choice of accountability. I chose to be accountable to something that I really needed to do and wanted to do. And once I made that step, the book was written in 1 year. It was published in 1 year from that date that I did that. So, the specific reason I wanted to talk with you tonight is about the choice of accountability. Within the Nerium organization, we have a system called the Next Level Accountability Call. Now, a lot of people misunderstand it. They think that the call is about reporting to the boss. It's really not about that at all. The 100% purpose of the Next Level Accountability Call is your growth. The leader who is running the call is simply facilitating the call for your benefit. It's an occasion where once a week you have an opportunity to call in, and along with a group of your equal peers who are pursuing the same growth you're looking for, with that group of equal peers, all you do is you step up and you report on 5 what we call key performance indicators. And your host will be able to explain those 5 key performance indicators to you at a later time, but they're just 5 things that every week you measure yourself, and every week you have an opportunity to report on what you said you were going to do versus what you actually got done, what you're going to do next week. No one sets your goals for you. No one comments on what you did or did not do. I mean, we don't all have perfect weeks. Sometimes we have great weeks, sometimes we don't. But when we know that we have the responsibility of stepping forward and say what we did, it pushes us past our self-imposed limitations. Guys, you cannot succeed in private. I've almost never seen that done. You need to step forward and be a part of a group of people who have the same goals you have of moving forward. And that's what the Next Level Accountability Call is all about. It's a once-a-week call. It takes about 15 minutes to complete it, and you have an opportunity to experience doing what you said you were going to do and seeing how that feels, because that always moves you forward. It's not about the numbers, even though the numbers will be very beneficial for you, because the KPIs, the key performance indicators, are based on the 5 things that it takes to succeed in the Nerium business. I think you'll find it to be very interesting. Now, one last thing. One thing I want everyone to know, the choice of accountability is not for everyone. It's really not. If you're just playing around with this thing, I would not get involved in an accountability group. However, there's someone on this call right now who is thinking, he's talking straight to me. This is exactly what I need to push me past my self-imposed limitations. If that's you, if you are serious about this business, if you're serious about making it in this business, I would strongly encourage you to get involved with a next level accountability group. It will be the absolute best thing you've ever done. So there's someone on this call thinking, that's exactly what I need to do. If that's you, then you're the person I'm talking to tonight. So what I'd like to do now, thank you for having me on the call. I hope you got some takeaway value from some of the things I've talked about. I'm going to turn the call back to the host, and the host will give you the information you would need to let someone know that, hey, I want to be a part of one of those groups. Now, no one will call you and beg you to participate because accountability is truly a personal choice. You have to make that choice for yourself. Your host will also be able to tell you about some recordings that I've made that you have access to within the Nerium within the Nerium network. You have access to these recordings where you can learn more about how to participate and what it's all about and the psychological advantage of it. So I'm going to at this time, I'm going to turn the call back to the host. They will give you the information you will need to respond and let someone know that you want to participate. Guys, thank you for having me on the call, and I wish you all success and achievement in the future.